Thank you so much for your introduction. Thank you so much for your introduction, and let's start with the presentation as it's a bit long, and I think that 1 hour is not enough to cover all the things, all the aspects of systematic review and meta-analysis. So, without wasting any time, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aksa Sarwan, and I'm serving FCCU as a lecturer in the Department of Statistics. And today we are going to study about the systematic review and meta-analysis, that how it works. Just give me 1 second that I can convert it into the, yeah. Is it visible to all of you? Okay, thank you so much. So first of all, we are going to look for the outline of the today's session. We are going to learn about the importance of systematic review and meta-analysis. Then we will discuss about the differences between literature review and systematic review. Then we will talk about what is systematic review and meta-analysis, why we do systematic review and meta-analysis, needs and uses of systematic review and meta-analysis, and how to perform these analyses. And we will end up the conversation by the conclusion. So first of all, uh, when we talk about this importance of systematic review and meta-analysis. So basically, systematic review and meta-analysis provides us the comprehensive evidence-based insight by synthesizing and analyzing the data from multiple studies and enhancing the reliability and accuracy of research findings. So when it comes to the definition, you will see the same words, that high quality systematic review and meta-analysis takes a great care of to find all the relevant studies, critically assess each study, synthesizes the findings from individual studies in an unbiased manner, and present the balanced, important summary of findings with the due consideration of any flaws in the evidence. So when it comes to the difference between the literature review and systematic review, so most of the time people think that the literature review and systematic review is the same thing, but there is a quite huge difference between literature review and systematic review. You can't perform meta-analysis on a simple literature review. If you want to go for the meta-analysis, you have to do a systematic review for priorly. So what is the basic difference between literature review and systematic review is, when you're supposed to select your topic, or you have to go for the review question. In case of systematic review, topics may be in scope. The goal of the review may be to the place one's own research within the existing body of knowledge, or to gather information that supports a particular viewpoint. But in case of systematic review, we started with a well-defined research question to be answered by the review. Reviews are conducted with the aim of finding all existing evidences in an unbiased, transparent, and reproducible ways. When you are searching for the studies to be included in the literature review or systematic review, the search may be ad hoc and based on what the author is already familiar with. Searches are not exhaustive or fully comprehensive. But in case of systematic reviews, all the attempts are made to find almost each and every existing published and unpublished literature on the research question. The purpose is well documented and reported. The process is, well documented and reported. Study selection in the literature review is often considered as a lack of clear reasons for why we are including this study and why we are excluding this study. We only focused on one thing, that this supports particular viewpoints, then we will include this study. If it's not supports a particular viewpoint, we will not going to include this. Or you don't have any clear about idea about inclusion and exclusion criteria in case of literature review. But when it comes to the systematic review, one must have a reason for including or excluding any study any studies that are explicit and informed by the research question. Assessing the quality of include studies often do not consider the study quality or potential biasness in the study designs, but systematic review critically assess the risk of bias of individual studies and overall quality of the evidence, including the source of heterogeneity between the studies. And the synthesis of existing research, when it comes to the synthesis of existing research, conclusions are more qualitative and may not be based on the study quality. And when it comes to the systematic review, it based on the conclusion of the quality of the study and provides the recommendations for practice or to address the knowledge age. So basically, there is a significant difference between systematic review and literature review. And the difference is that systematic reviews follows a structured and transparent method to evaluate all relevant research on a topic, while a literature review provides a general summary of existing knowledge, often without any standardized approach. So, what is systematic review and meta-analysis? Basically, systematic review is a review of an evidence on a clearly formulated question that uses systematic and explicit method to identify, select, and critically appraises the relevant primary research, and to extract and analyze the data from the studies that are included in the review. So first of all, we are supposed to find the research question. We are supposed to work on our research question, that what will be our topic, what will be our study question, and on which topic we are supposed to work on. The next step is we have to decide that how we are supposed to include or exclude the papers, which type of the like you are supposed to specify your topic in a way that you have to know that which type of papers you are going to include in your study or which type of papers you are not going to include in your study. Like, for example, you have to select a specific time period, you have to select a specific location, then you have to select a specific criteria to that we are going to study about these factors only. So we will include all those papers which have those factors, and we will exclude the other ones. Once you will set an inclusion and exclusion criteria, the next step is to study search strategy and screening. Once you will set your criteria in a systematic way, the next step is to search those papers, and you will go for the deep studies about all those articles related to that specific topic, and find out that either they have all those inclusion criteria or not, either they have those factors or not. If they have those factors, you are going to include those papers in your study, otherwise you will exclude those papers. Once you will select the selected papers, once you will select those papers which have the inclusion criteria related to your studies, the next step is to assess the quality, that you will assess the quality of those papers based on some factors. And then next is statistical analysis, that you will perform the statistical analysis on those papers whose quality is already assessed by you. Now on your screens, you can see the Prisma flow diagram. So this is basically a diagram which is representing the papers you have screened. Like it is from the it is representing the whole research, that how you are starting from the scratch, how you're going to select the papers, then how you're going to identify that how you are supposed to add the papers in your research or not. First of all, if you will see from the top left side of your screen, you will see that we have used different search engines to find the different papers, and the relevant the example topic is hepatitis B. That if you want to make a systematic review and meta-analysis on the hepatitis B, prevalence of hepatitis B, you're supposed to search all possible search engines. Okay? And for that purpose, you will record all the papers you will find about the HBV. You can see that we have different numbers. 1838 records were identified for the hepatitis B virus from different search engines. Then there are 2917 papers which are recorded from which are identified for HBV. Then we can also do some manual searchings to include the papers about this topic. Once we will get all those papers, then we will go for the deep analysis, and we will see that either they have any replicated papers in those articles we have searched or not. And if there are any duplicate papers, we will remove those papers from our overall numbers. You can see that there are 3,278 duplicates removed from those papers we have found above. Then you are going to screen the abstracts. You are going to see either they have the inclusion or exclusion criteria. You have set that, and you will go for the deep analysis and deep studies, and you will exclude all those papers which are not up to your inclusion criteria, and then you will exclude those papers, and then you will fully screen the articles for the eligibility. And after fully screening the articles, you will exclude the other papers which are not related to your research. Like, for example, if there are any kind of reviews or meta-analysis, or if there are any kind of studies which are not clearly related to your topic, you will exclude those as well. And by the end of all those doings, we only get 73 papers out of thousands of papers which are eligible for our meta-analysis. So this is what a systematic review is, or this is what our system this is how we have to search for a topic systematically by using all those in search engines or manual searching. We will going to study about these in the upcoming slides as well. So Prisma flow diagram is a visual representation used in the systematic review to illustrate the process of identifying, screening, and including studies. It helps us to ensure the transparency and reproducibility in the review process by showing how many studies we were found, filtered, and ultimately included in the analysis. So what authors have to do is, in case of systematic review and meta-analysis, they are supposed to write a review plan. They have to have a clear idea about the research question. Then they have to search for the studies. Once they selected the studies, they're supposed to extract the data from those studies, then assess the quality of the studies. Then we are supposed to combine all those extracted data or synthesis or meta and perform the synthesis or meta-analysis. Then we will conclude the discuss and conclude the overall findings of all those papers. And in the end of the day, we have to write a systematic review. And if you if you want to go further, you can perform a meta-analysis on that findings as well. So what is meta-analysis? When it comes to the meta-analysis is a quantitative formal epidemiological study design used to systematically assess the results of previous researches to drive the conclusion about that body of research. So what we have to do is we are only supposed to do supposed to do a quantitative analysis on all those studies which we already have systematically reviewed. Then we are supposed to extract the information from all those studies, and we have to establish a significant finding from all those papers, and we have to quantitatively analyze those papers. So meta-analysis would be used for the following purpose. So it used to establish the statistical significance with the studies that have conflicting results. So if you are going to face some conflicts between the same researches, you can establish a significant difference by quantitatively analyzing those studies using meta-analysis. It is also used to develop a more correct estimate of effect magnitude, and it also provides us a more complex analysis of harms, safety data and benefits. Meta-analysis is used to examine subgroups with individual numbers that are not statistically significant. So by using the meta-analysis, you can critically analyze the multiple studies at a time and draw a result on the base of those studies. You can draw a collective result about your finding, about your research questions. So why we do systematic review and meta-analysis? When it comes to the need of it, it is used to minimize the impact of biasness and error. Meta-analysis and systematic review and meta-analysis is also used to end the confusions. It can help us to end the confusions between the different studies which are interpreting the different results. You can see that how much of those results are significant or not significant, how we are supposed to handle those significance and insignificance, and on which articles we have to believe or on which articles we don't have to believe. Highlight where there is not significant evidence. Combining findings from the different studies can highlight new findings. Can mitigate the need of further trials. Comprehensive details on any topic regarding the previous studies related to the topic. So needs or uses of systematic reviews and meta-analysis. When it comes to the uses of the systematic review, so first and foremost use of the systematic review and meta-analysis is to facilitate the rational decision making, that you can rationalize your decisions about the different articles based on your findings of systematic review and meta-analysis. The next step is healthcare providers, researchers, and policymakers are inundated with the unmanageable amount of information. Like, for example, there are over 220 million citations in PubMed and approximately 75 to 100 randomized controlled trials published daily. So to deal with all those research articles and to deal with all those publications, it's impossible to analyze all those studies individually and finding the significance difference of all those studies. So, and it is usually impossible to consider all relevant individual primary research studies in the decision-making context. So, systematic review or meta-analysis helps us to combine the maximum information and then presenting it in one single paper. So if you are studying one single systematic review and meta-analysis, it means that you are studying almost like 20, 30, 40 papers at once. And you are finding you are assessing the overall significance and overall essence of those papers at once, and you don't have to go for the individual study of all those 50, 34, like 20, 30 and 50 papers. So it helps us to condense the information and come up with a very significant answers. It also enables the practitioners to keep up to date and practice evidence-based medicine. Clearly stated objective with predefined eligibility criteria for studies, explicit reproducible methodology and all. A systematic research that attempts to identify all studies and assessments of the validity of the findings of the studies, like for example, risk of bias, systematic presentations, and synthesis of the characteristics and findings of the included studies. Now, this is not about that systematic review and meta-analysis is only for the medical sciences. It's not like that. You can use systematic review and meta-analysis in almost every field of your in every field of research. You can use this for the non-science subjects as well. You can use this for the non-medicated researches as well. This is just the concept to collect the information, to have a overall comprehensive idea of the majority of the papers at once, so that it will mitigate your burden of the reading all those articles individually. You can have the overall idea of the articles within the one research. Now, the basic step is how to perform systematic review and meta-analysis. Before moving towards the quantitative analysis, the first step is how you are supposed to do the systematic review. And for systematic review, as we already talked about the Prisma flow diagram, and we already talked about the systematic steps that how we have to include the studies. The first step is to have your research articles about which you are supposed to write your systematic review and analysis. Here you can see that how we are supposed to identify the topic. You are supposed to screen those topics by using all the possible search engines, and then you are supposed to find the eligibility criteria, and then once you will exclude the non-required papers or the papers which are not included in your study question, you will find out you will come up with the papers which are solely related to your research question or your topic, and then you're supposed to assess the quality of those papers, and then you're supposed to write the systematic review about those papers. So this is the Prisma flow chart of studies screened and included in your research analysis, and this is basically how you have to search your topics. Once you will search your topics, once you will critically analyze those topics, once you will detail, you will have a in-depth study of those articles. The next step is to apply the meta-analysis. And for meta-analysis, first step is the data extraction. Like in the last slide, if you have selected 40 papers, you are supposed to extract the data from all those 40 papers, and you have to individually study all those papers to extract the information. Then the next step is to fit the model and to prepare the data. If your data is not like in a right way or in a filtered way, you have to prepare your data. Then according to the data, you are supposed to apply the heterogeneity, meta-analysis, and meta-regression based on the type of your data sets. So the next thing is research questions. Research questions, once you have to decide that what will be your topic, you are supposed to find that research question of a systematic event meta-analysis must have some things which will be included in this, decide on a research question for systematic review and meta-analysis by focusing on a specific population, intervention, comparison, and outcome. This is commonly known as PICO as well, PICO framework. To ensure the clarity and relevance, I'm aiming to the address and significant issues or uncertainty in the field. So you will have a clear idea that what will be the outcome of your study, what will be the intervention on which you are supposed to work, and what will be your study population and about which you have to select the papers. So these are the basic three things which must which are like must for your topic. And then you will write down the systematic event analysis. In this example, our topic is prevalence of type 2 diabetes in Japan, a systematic review and meta-analysis. So we are supposed to come up with those papers which are related to the prevalence, and prevalence will be about the type 2 diabetes, and our study population will be Japan. So if you are going to search about this topic and you are going to use any of the search engines, like for example, if you're going to do a Google, you are going to search on the Google Scholars. If you will write down the prevalence of type 2 diabetes, you will come up with the thousands of the, or if I'm not wrong, millions of the papers about prevalence of type 2 diabetes. Now, as because we are only interested in the population of Japan, we have to specify that topic by writing down that prevalence of type 2 diabetes in Japan. Then we will come up with the papers which are related to the prevalence of type 2 diabetes in Japan. We are supposed to gather the information from those researches. Once we will search for the topic, once we will search for the research question, we are supposed to use different keywords to find that same topic to get as maximum as possible information from different search engines, searching databases. Throughout your research, you will be using several information resources, because systematic review never ever considered only one research engine, that you are going to use the Google Scholar only to find the all possible papers. It will not be recommended for you. You are supposed to use different search engines to get all possible informations about that specific research questions. So the following databases will be crucial to your information retrieval process, that you can use these different engines. Now, these are specifically for in the case of biological studies or like biostatistics. These are basically for the those topics which include some biomedical informations. In case if you have other than if you have the topic other than the biostatistics or bio studies or medical studies, you can use different search engines as well. So in this case, first one is CINAHL, HL Complete on Campus or VPN, which is the cumulative index to nursing and allied health literature. Second one is PubMed and Medline via Ovid on Campus or VPN, PubMed OpenSS icon or Scopes on Campus. And then you can use Embase, Web of Sciences on Campus or VPN, and you can use all, or it's not like that you're supposed to use any one of them. You are supposed to use all of them at once to find the all relevant study papers. There are chances that you can get similar papers from the different supposed to eliminate the duplicate papers by the end of your research. So first of all, you have to search your topic on each of these search engines to get as maximum information as possible. Now, when it comes to these search engines, they have proper there are proper tutorials on YouTube that how you can search the research articles on those research engines by using their techniques, because they have some certain filters or the options of keywords, that how you can use different keywords to find the same topic, how you can use the different time periods or the different research questions to find all relevant papers. But in case you come up with all those searchings and you come up with all the papers with the bulk of information from all those search engines, the next step is doing a manual search as well. Like, you just don't depend on the PubMed or Google Scholars, that you have did a systematic research. Now you are not supposed to do the manual searching. I think that you're supposed to start with the manual searching. Once you will done with your manual searching, then you're supposed to use those systematic methods or PubMed, those search engines to find the research articles. You can set the different filters and different criteria while searching your research question on those search engines, and it will help you to find up to come up with the most relevant papers related to your research questions. So when it comes to the manual searching, There are almost 5 methods to make a manual searching. Searching references from included studies, reviews, contacting the authors and experts, and looking at the related articles, cited articles in PubMed and Google Scholar. Following are the 3 consecutive methods to increase and refine the yield of manual searchings. First of all, searching the reference list of included articles. Like, for example, if you have some included articles which are solely related to your topics, you are supposed to go for the references, and then you have to study about the references and open all those referenced papers and deeply analyze those reference papers, that either they are also capable to be included in your research or not. Secondly, performing what is known as citation tracking, in which the reviewers track all the articles that cite each one of the included articles, and this might involve electronic searchings of the databases as well. Thirdly, similar to the citation tracking, we follow all related to or similar articles in the research. Now, each of the above mentioned methods can be performed by 2 to 3 independent reviewers, and all possible relevant articles must undergo further scrutiny against the inclusion criteria after following the same records yield from the electronic base. Title, for example, title, abstract, and full text screening. Now, the purpose of performing this step by 2 to 3 independent reviewers is so that we will not miss any single information. In case one person is missing one paper, second person may have to cover that paper, include that paper as well. So to find the maximum information, you are supposed to repeat this step by 2 to 3 independent reviewers, so that you can't miss any of those informations. Now, once you will gather all your data, once you will come up with the final result, that out of, for example, out of 6, 7 or 8,000 papers, you come up with the 25 papers which are eligible for your systematic review and meta-analysis. Now, the next step is to extract the data from all those papers. Now, how you can extract the data is, once you filter the papers and you have the set of studies that you will work with, like, for example, we have 25 articles with which we have to work. Now it's time to extract the data from them for your study. Now, to do a systematic review, we have to extract information from those articles as well. And at minimum, we need some following informations that are required to be extracted from the qualified studies. And the first one is general information, that who is the author, what is the year of publication, period of inclusion of participants, and area of study. We need some general information from all those papers. Then we are supposed to find the study characteristics, that what was the response rate, what was the sampling method used in those papers, what was the setting and time of the research. Then the next step is the participants characteristics. We have to extract the information about the participants as well, that what is the mean or median age of the participant, what was the age range in all those articles, proportion of the male participants, proportion of the participants with different risk factors, for example, hypertension, smoking habits, physical inactivity, obesity, alcohol consumption, and family history of diabetes, etc. Now, we are supposed to include all those participants information, and we are supposed to include all those informations available in all those 25 papers. And there might be a chance that there is there are some informations which are not covered by all those 25 papers, but we have to write down that how much information we gathered from each of those papers individually. Now, and the last thing is sample size, number of participants with the outcome of interest, and diagnosis criteria for condition. That how they decided that this is the diagnosis, this is the type of disease, and how they decide the diagnosis criteria and what was the condition for that. So once you extract all the information, this is mostly done by 2 to 3 individuals, so that no one missed any of the information. And if one is unable to find something, maybe there is a chance that the other person who is studying that paper might get that research same. Now, adding one thing here is, AI make a lot of things easier these days, and there might be a chance that there are a lot of I suppose that there are a lot of AI tools now which helps us to write down the systematic reviews or reviews at least, which helps us to condense the information from the articles. But here we are like solely talking about that manual methods which we studied in our times, because as I think that there is a difference now. We studied all the things by using the pure ways or the elaborated ways, but these days students have a lot of tools and AI softwares which helps them to condense the information, or which helps them to compile the information very in a handy way or in a very short time period. So these extractions are basically done manually, were basically done manually in the past, and in these days there might be a chance that there are a lot of softwares to do these things. So once you will extract the information, the next thing is assessing its quality. Now you have the information. Now the next step is you are supposed to assess how accurate this information is, how unbiased this information is, and how what will be the quality of those articles which are included in your studies. You are supposed to find the quality of all those papers by it will have some certain criteria. Like for example, for each study you will need to critically appraise the information contained within it and decide if the study you are considering for your reviews meets the internal validity criteria or not. At the minimum, you will need to identify the following. What is the theory and hypothesis this research is about? Is this sample is adequate for the research question? Is this study is underpowered or overpowered? So you can see that, like for example, if you have included an article and that article is about the prevalence of type 2 diabetes in Japan, and the sample size is only 20 or 25 or 30, there might be a chance. So you can see that this sample size is not adequate for the research question. So you can assess the quality on the behalf of the sample size, on the behalf of the different things, that what is the hypothesis, what is the theory, what is the research question, and either the study is overpowered or underpowered. And then you can see that to what extent did the author eliminate the biasness in the study. As we already studied in the systematic review, that systematic reviews basically helps us to eliminate the biasness. So in case of single studies, either the author eliminates the biasness or not, even if it is a randomized control trial. Was there blinding? How confident are you that an author conduct an appropriate randomization procedure? What is the likelihood that the groups that were compared were different with respect to the prediction? Is if this is a randomized control trial, did the author conduct an intervention or to treat the analysis or not? So there are a lot of questions which we have to assess in case to find the quality of the papers, and we have to address those questions. Like for example, if this is an observational study, how did the author eliminate the risk of selection bias? How much was the risk of information bias from the participant eliminated? And then what confounding variables are controlled for? Are these confounding variables sufficient? This will requires that you will have to know something about the biology of the relationship. If you are not confident, ask someone. That you have to do your research first about the topic, about the confoundings, about the case control studies, or about those variables. Then you will have to work on these things. A great way to ascertain the quality of each article, rather each outcome within an article, is to use the grade. Now, what is grade? Grade is basically grading recommendations, assessment, development, and evaluation criteria, and use GradePro software. Now, there is a software which will help you to find the quality of each of the papers, to judge the quality of the outcome interventions pairing. The result of the quality assessment will be used for the descriptive purposes to provide an evaluation of overall quality of the included studies and to provide a transparent method of recommendations for the design of any further studies. So assessing the quality of the papers is quite a crucial step to perform. Like you have to assess the quality of all the papers. If you have 25 articles, you are supposed to assess the quality of all those 25 papers individually, basically. Now, once you assess the quality, first you were selected the articles. The second step was to assess their quality. Once you assess the quality of the articles, now the next step is to check the data. to extract the data, to check the data. After extracting all the data in a sheet and assessing the quality of the papers, next step is to check the data thoroughly and to cross-check the results of each and every paper. Because if you are having any missing information, if you're having any wrong cited information, like for example, if someone misinterpreted some results, it will cause a major effect on your meta-analysis by the end of the day. So you are supposed to check your data priorly, and you have to do this by using 2 to 3 independent reviewers, so that there will be no missing information, there will be no confused results, and there will be no any kind of like mistakes made in the data collections. So how you can thoroughly check each and every paper in case of any confusion? These are some steps. Extraction of the information is based thoroughly. After extracting all the data in the sheet and assessing the quality of the papers, next step is to check the data thoroughly and cross-check the results for each and every paper. In case of any confused result and missing values, recheck the paper and mark the changes, so that you will sort out the information and you will avoid those wrong answers by the end of the day. Due to the expected human error and bias, a data checking step is recommended. There might be a chance that the human can make an error and there will be a biasness in the data extraction. So you can this step is recommended to all of you, in which every included article is compared with its counterpart in an extraction sheet by evidence photos to detect the mistakes in the data. Assessing articles to 2 to 3 independent reviewers, ideally not the ones who perform the extraction for those articles, is recommended for the better results. Like for example, if your author A extract the information from first 10 papers, then author B is supposed to data check for those first 10 papers to avoid any kind of mistakes or to avoid any kind of confused results or missing values. This is what recommended. When resources are limited, each reviewer is assigned a different article than the one he extracted in the previous stage, so that it will help you to come up with all those as accurate as possible results by the end of the day. Now, conducting a statistical analysis. Before moving to the data analysis, few points are there are some points which you're supposed to keep in your mind. Now, these are the points which are related to the statistical analysis. Before applying statistical analysis, you are supposed to understand the data very clearly, that in all those papers, what type of data is considered and how you're supposed to handle that specific category of the data. First of all, it is important to be familiar with the type of data. What is the type of data? Either it is a dichotomous data or a continuous data. Dichotomous type of data is the type of data in which you have only certain answers, and continuous type of data is something in which you can assume any possible value as your result. That results from the measurement of an outcome in an individual study, and to choose suitable effect measure for comparing the intervention groups. Most meta-analysis methods are variations on the weighted average of the effect estimate from the different studies. That you, in most of the time in meta-analysis and most of the meta-analysis methods are basically come up with the weighted average of all the papers, and you can say that weighted average of affected estimated of all those different studies, that you will come up with a average which will represent the effect of all the individual averages of the studies. Studies with no event contributed no information about the risk ratio or odd ratio. For rare events, the Pareto method has been observed to be less biased and more powerful than other methods. Many judgments are required in the process of preparing a meta-analysis. Sensitivity analysis should be used to examine whether overall findings are robust to potentially influential decisions or not. The commonly used methods for meta-analysis follow the following basic principles. Now, the basic principles are typically a two-stage process. First stage is a summary statistics is calculated for each study to describe the observed interventions effect in same way for every day. In the second stage, a summary combined intervention effect estimate is calculated as a weighted average of the intervention effect estimated in an individual studies. Now here you can see a diagram in which we are explaining the fixed and random effect model. I will explain this diagram after these definitions. It will be more convenient for you to understand about these methods. So there are two types of models, random effect and fixed effect models. Random effect models are those models in which we consider both within the study and between study variabilities and assume that the studies included in the meta-analysis are random sample from all possible studies, generally the preferred model for meta-analysis. Fixed effect model is the model which considered only within the study variability and which assumes the study that studies are identical method, studies use identical methods, patients and measurements. Now, when it comes to the diagram, you can see in the first diagram, which is about the fixed effect model, and the second diagram is about the random effect model. When it comes to the fixed effect model, it has the homogeneous source of population, and it is about the second definition in which you can use identical methods, identical patients, identical measurements because you have a homogeneous source of population. So you can apply the fixed effect model. But when it comes to the multiple source of populations, there will be a lot of like different variations. There will be a variation within the data, then there will be a variation between the data sets, between the population sources, and you will have the multiple effects, and you can use random effect models to find those multi-source populations or to deal with those type of data sets. So the next thing is forest plot, sorry. Once you will extract the data, once you will like come up with the information, once you will find the type of model, the next thing is to apply the analysis. And for doing meta-analysis, you will use different softwares. There are like R, the R is now the more convenient software to perform the meta-analysis, but there are some other softwares as well. But the thing is that which I want to mention here is that forest plot is something which come up with the overall analysis. This is not that forest which you are looking in this slide. This is basically the forest plot of meta-analysis is something looking like this. Now you can see this forest plot is representing the overall statistical quantitative analysis of the studies which we done in this in a meta-analysis. What is basically the forest plot? So the forest plot in meta-analysis is a graphical presentation that displays the results from individual studies along with an overall summary estimates, providing a visual summary of the data variations and combined effect size. So forest plot help us to analyze different research articles in a single finding, and you will have the presentation of different results from the individual studies. Like for example, in this diagram, in the most left corner, you will find a heading of study, and under this you will find out that Said et al 2015, Said et al 2014. So these are the almost 6 articles. So in this picture we are going to have the presentation of the result of almost 6 articles in one analysis. And you can see that the total number of participants in these studies were 1183, 1200, 1172, 1156, 1129, 1231. So at once, this is why we extract the information individually, so that we will have condensed information in the meta-analysis. So out of those events are also mentioned here, that how much are there, the prevalence of prevalence of the individuals, that how much of them are diabetic, and the events are also mentioned here. Now these columns are representing, the first 3 columns are representing the study, the event, the total. The next thing is you will have a vertical line. You will look at the vertical line, event per 100 observations, and then there are small horizontal lines having a block with it. If you can see my cursor, I will going to mark this thing. This is basically this is basically the effect of that study in the overall meta-analysis, and this vertical line is representing the confidence interval of that specific study, and this box is representing the significance of that specific study, And this vertical line is typically interpreting the no effect area. Now, if the studies are, if the lines with the boxes are on the either on the left or right side, it means that these studies have a significant impact on the meta-analysis, and these have the significant impact out of all those studies. Like, for example, if there are 6 articles, it means that the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth study have a significant impact out of all these research articles, and those 2 research articles have not that much significant impact. The first 2, sorry, my cursor. Though these first 2 articles are not having that much significant effect on the overall in between all those research studies. Now you can see the percentage here, that how much percentage is of the overall, like you may say it's the average, weighted average of all those articles, that how much they have included in those studies. Now in the end of, you can see that events, then there is a confidence interval. This confidence interval is basically this line. If that line is long, you can see 20 to 24, 8 to 11, 7 to 10, 7.62 to 10.93. So these lines are representing the confidence interval. By the end of the day, you can see that meta-analysis is giving, meta-analysis is giving the equal weightage to all those articles, which is 16.7. So we have like given equal weightage to all those articles to find the overall weightage, that if the overall impact of the studies is 100%, each one of those having almost 16% impact individually. And this is the weighted average, this is the overall combined weighted average of all those 6 articles. So according to these 6 articles, there is 12.3% percentile prevalence of diabetes in Afghanistan, and the overall confidence intervals are also mentioned here. And you can see the random effect model, that the total participants were 7,071. Prediction interval is also mentioned here, and heterogeneity, like how much heterogeneity was there, is also mentioned there. And you can see, like, interpreting a forest plot involves that looking at the horizontal lines, these, which were often centered on the effect size, that how much this center is representing the effect size for each study. If the line crosses the vertical line, this line, typically at no effect. So this is typically at the no effect. It suggests that the study found no significant effect, like first and second, which is not actually the 100% not significant. It is something like which is not typically too much significant. So the overall effect size represented by the diamond at the end of the bottom. This diamond, which is at the end of the bottom of the vertical line, is representing the overall effect of the all those studies, shows the combined result of all the studies, with the confidence interval indicating the precision of the estimate. This confidence interval, that how much precise these studies were. Now, this is the pooled and like screened analysis, pooled records. Now you will have, this is the essence of all those 25 papers, and this is the basically the extracted information from all those 25 articles. And you can see that these are quite elaborative. These are like in a detail. You will find about you will find all the qualitative information of all those 25 papers in this one single table. You can see that there are the studies in which first one is the variables. These variables were commonly found in all those studies, and these are the studies. Like, there were 17 studies in which prediabetes were discussed. There were 13 studies in which male prediabetes and female prediabetes was discussed individually. And you can see that there are 26 articles which discussed about the diabetes. Now, to make to clear your one confusion, this table is from the prevalence of diabetes and pre-diabetes systematic review and meta-analysis. So that's why you can get the information about the pre-diabetes as well in the table. So there are 26 articles in which the total population was 80,775, out of which the diabetic population was 6,476. and the overall prevalence was 7.8. And you can see that there are 4 articles in which they have also discussed about the undiagnosed diabetes, and they also mentioned the population and cases in that specific cases as well. There is also some articles who defined the population or the general population or the sample or the cases by gender segregations. They also discussed about the male and female ratios in the articles, that there are 16 articles in which they sampled the male and females, and there was 27,000 males as a sample, and 2,000 males were detected as diabetic. And then there were 25,584 sample of females, and out of which 1,779 cases were diagnosed with the diabetes. So you can see the different variables that they have also distributed the population by using the areas, urban or rural areas, then by age, that these articles have these different age groups, these different time periods. Now if you can see the last column, variable, you can see that this basic this basic systematic event meta-analysis includes the studies from 1995 to 2019. So their research period was 1995 to 2019, and there were 3 articles only in 1995 to 2000. There were 11 articles from 2001 to 2010, and there were 12 articles from the 2011 to 2019. And they also discuss the individual samples in those articles and the cases diagnosed with the diabetes. When it comes to the prevalence, you can see that overall pre-diabetic prevalence was 10.1%. The overall prevalence of the diabetic patients was 7.8%, and so on. Now, this 7.8 is the weighted average calculated from all those 26 articles. That this is referring that according to these 26 articles, the prevalence of diabetes is 7.8%. You can see the I-square, the 95% prediction interval, heterogeneity, and the differences by the in the other columns. This is the significance of the papers. This is the significance of the papers, interval, prediction level, confidence level, and this I-square is also representing here the analysis which were done previously. So next step is to apply the meta regression. So meta regression is something which you can apply on the data sets, and in case if your data is specified that the only meta analysis is not preferable, in that case then you can go for the meta regression as well and apply the meta regression. And in case of meta regression, you can see that the variables are, this is univariate meta regression analysis. You can see the variables are date of collection, either date of data collection is significant on that study or not, year of publication, age, hypertension, and all those variables which were commonly found on those in those studies. Now we have the values of coefficients as well. We have the p values according to which you can find the significance of the articles, and you can see that the date of data collection, year of publication, and age has a significant effect on the meta-analysis. Then there is 95% confidence interval, and there is R-square as well, which is representing that how much these variables have covered the dependent variable, or how much these variables have covered the dependent variables. Thank you so much. This is what our all analysis was about, and in the end we have the system softwares. We can use comprehensive meta-analysis, Stata, R, MS Excel, etc. Now out of all those, R is the most convenient software to calculate the to perform the meta-analysis for me, as because you will find a lot of tutorials on this, and there were a lot of commands, and as because this is a programming language, so it is quite convenient to to calculate the meta-analysis on this as compared to MS Excel or Stata. And comprehensive meta-analysis was like a paid software at once. I don't know either we have the free versions right now or not, as because I always use R for those analysis. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, you can ask me. So there is a question from, sorry, Mavish, if I can go for the questions or you will like read the questions for me.
So thank you so much, Aksa. Actually, we don't have any pressing questions here. Thanks a lot. But there's one that says that you have to explain the interval on slide 33 or 34. If you could go back to slide 33.
Yeah. Give me
Yeah,
one
the
minute.
confidence interval.
So these confidence intervals 33.
This is slide 32. Yeah, this is 33.
So these were the confidence intervals for the regression analysis. Basically, once you apply the regression analysis, these are the confidence intervals which will tell you about the coefficients. That coefficient can be varied from 0.005 to 0.011. We have the value 0.008, but this value can be varied from 0.05 to 0.11. We can say that we are 95% sure that our coefficient value must be lie within this range. So this is the basic information, the interpretation of confidence interval, but this is related to the coefficients.
All right. So thank you so much, Akhtar. Although we don't have any questions in this session, but I want to ask you as an expert that how do you think AI is going to have an impact on so many things that you said throughout the process? There are so many tools available now. For example, you were talking about how to make sure that your the data that you include is relevant, valid. So now the AI is kind of taking over these things, and we can use certain tools to guide us. So what's your stance on that?
So basically, as we all of us are dealing with those things, and I think that we are a bit outdated for the today's generation or for the today's students. So I think it will be helpful for those who are doing systematic review meta analysis in like in a lot of ways. Like for example, if you're doing a review, first it will take a lot of months to do a review, as you have already done the work on systematic review and meta analysis, and you will have a better idea that if you're going to do it by yourself, you are supposed to read all those articles individually, and it was a quite a hectic procedure and quite a time taking procedure. Now, as because AI took the take a step on this, and there are a lot of softwares I have seen last days while doing a research that there are tools in which you can add the papers and they can extract all the important information from that. So I think it will be a time saving procedure. AI will help us to make the things more faster. If someone is don't know anything about meta analysis or systematic review, I don't think so that they can do the whole research only on the by using AI. Obviously they have to do some work for that. They have to do some homework on this topic or
Of course,
on
they
the
have
things.
to have the
But
basic
for those who are
understanding,
already
but
doing these things, but for those who are already doing these things and those who have the idea about these things, I think for them, AI is helping them to make the things easier and more convenient because everyone
absolutely.
is running out of time. So it will help you to save your a lot of time for me. Like I think so that it will
So
helps us
it
to
would be very
save a lot
interesting
of
if we
time.
can come up with a resource bank for this kind of activity to perform systematic literature review. What sort of tools should the researchers refer to for selecting the first information, checking the data availability? All of that, I think, can be handled by AI.
I think we have to update these things now. As I already mentioned
Yeah.
that we did those things manually. So I don't have the direct interaction with those softwares or with those tools because I didn't
Okay.
use any of those tools until now. But I think we have to update as a lecturers or as a resource persons or as a speakers or as a instructors. We also have to update ourselves, and I think we will, inshallah, in the coming sessions or in the coming year, we will come up with those tools, AI tools as well, which helps us to find the systematic review in a more like simplest way or in a more convenient way to save our times. So as
Absolutely.
until now, I haven't used any of those AI tools, so I can't give you any idea about this, but I have seen the
All right,
tutorials
but
or
it's
like the
food for
recommendations
thought
about
for
those.
all of us. Yeah. So thank you
Yes,
so much,
thank you so
Aksa.
much.
Thank
We
you for
will
your
also work
time,
on
and
it.
thank you for this insightful session. Now I'm going to run the session evaluation. I request the participants to please complete this poll. Just give me a minute. We have another session lined up on statistical results, and
1
that
o'clock
session
with
will be
38.
conducted by Zishan, Dr. Zishan
Yes.
from University of Hull. Yeah, so we will start that session in about next 5 minutes. So I'm just going to wait for another few seconds to run this poll. Yeah. And thank you everyone for attending today's session. Thanks a lot, Aksa. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you so much.